There are moments in life when everything feels heavy. You wake up in the morning, and instead of energy, you feel a weight pressing on your chest. You look around, and even though the world keeps moving, your heart whispers that something is missing. Maybe it is the constant stress of bills, deadlines, and responsibilities. Maybe it is the loneliness of not being understood, even when you are surrounded by people. Or maybe it is the silent anxiety that follows you like a shadow, never giving you a moment of peace. For many people today, this has become the normal way of living. We rush, we consume, we chase, yet deep inside, we feel empty. This pain is not unique. It is not your private burden alone. Across the modern world, millions share the same restless nights, the same longing for clarity, the same questions. Why am I suffering? Why does life feel so overwhelming? And most importantly, is there a way out? These questions may sound frightening, but they are not signs of weakness. They are signs that you are alive, awake enough to notice the cracks in the illusion. You are not alone in this search. There is a path, walked for thousands of years, that whispers. Your suffering is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of transformation. That ancient wisdom from the Buddhist tradition does not deny pain. It does not pretend that life is always easy. Instead, it invites us to look at our struggles with honesty and courage. Stress, anger, fear, heartbreak, and loss, these are not enemies to destroy, but teachers to learn from. Imagine your pain as a locked door. On the surface, it seems like a barrier. But what if that door is also an invitation? What if behind it lies a new way of seeing, a new way of being, one that brings freedom not by escaping life, but by embracing it with open eyes and an open heart? This journey is not about becoming perfect. It is not about abandoning the world or pretending to be holy. It is about learning simple, powerful truths that can guide you in the middle of your ordinary life. It is about discovering balance in a world that feels chaotic, peace in a heart that feels restless, and strength in moments when you feel weak. These truths are not complicated theories. They are living practices, tools you can hold in your hands, and steps you can take right now. Over the next chapters, we will walk together through 10 profound lessons. Each one begins with a pain you already know. Stress that steals your breath, money worries that never end, relationships that break your heart, anxiety that tightens your chest. But each pain will open into a teaching, a gentle yet powerful key that can unlock another layer of freedom. We will see how letting go can be more powerful than holding on. We will see how compassion can turn suffering into strength. We will see how presence in this very moment can heal wounds that time alone cannot touch. This is not theory. It is a path that has been walked by countless seekers before you, from monks in distant monasteries to ordinary men and women in busy cities. Their struggles were not so different from yours. Their questions were not so different either. And the answers they found are not locked in the past. They are alive here and now, waiting for you to hear them in your own heart. So take a breath. Let the noise of the world fade for just a moment. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are standing at the beginning of a journey where every pain becomes a doorway, every fear becomes a chance to awaken, and every moment becomes a step into freedom. Everywhere you look, people are rushing. Their faces glow with the light of screens. Their calendars are filled with appointments. Their hearts beat faster than they can notice. Stress has become the invisible companion of modern life. Some wear it like armor, pretending it gives them strength. Others try to hide it, pushing it deep inside while smiling on the surface. But no matter how well we disguise it, stress gnaws at us. It creeps into our sleep. It clouds our decisions. It steals the simple joy of being alive. Think about how many times you have said to yourself, if I can just finish this project, if I can just pay this bill, if I can just get through this week, then I will finally relax. but the relief never lasts. The next demand arrives, and then another, until exhaustion becomes your daily companion. Stress is not only an occasional storm, it is the very climate we live in. And yet, beneath the busyness, there is a quiet yearning. The desire to breathe freely, the desire to live without this constant weight. Stress is not just about external pressure. It is about the way our minds cling to control. We imagine a perfect version of life where nothing goes wrong, where everything stays in order. And when reality resists, when traffic slows us down, when coworkers misunderstand us, when loved ones disappoint us, we fight against what is. This resistance creates tension, like holding your fist tight all day long. Eventually, the muscles ache. In the same way, our hearts ache from clinging to what we cannot control. A simple example: you are stuck in traffic. The clock ticks and your body tightens with anger. You think, this should not be happening. But the cars will not move faster just because you resist. The more you fight reality, the more your suffering grows. Stress is not born from traffic alone. It is born from the mind that cannot accept being delayed. This is where ancient wisdom offers a surprising key. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from life itself, but from the way we grasp, resist, and cling. Stress is not a punishment. It is a teacher, pointing to the places where we hold on too tightly. When we learn to loosen the grip, something changes. The tension softens. The heart breathes again. Picture a rope in your hands. The harder you pull, the deeper it burns into your skin. But when you loosen your grip, the pain begins to ease. Stress works the same way. Life will always bring challenges. But when we meet them with awareness instead of resistance, the rope stops cutting so deeply. Mindfulness is the practice of loosening that grip. It is not an escape from life. It is a new way of meeting it. Imagine yourself sitting quietly, noticing the breath as it rises and falls. For a moment, you let go of the rush to fix everything. You do not need to plan the future or replay the past. You simply breathe. In that moment, stress loses its power. The storm may still rage outside, but inside, you discover an anchor of stillness. Scientific studies now confirm what practitioners have known for centuries. Mindfulness reduces anxiety, lowers blood pressure, and even strengthens the immune system. But beyond health benefits, it gives you something more profound: the ability to live your life instead of being driven by it. Stress will not vanish. Deadlines will still come. Bills will still arrive. But your relationship to them changes. You stop drowning in the current and begin to float. Think of a tree in the wind. The branches sway, sometimes violently, but the roots remain grounded. With mindfulness, your breath becomes the root. Each inhale, each exhale is a reminder that you are alive here now. And from that root, strength grows. You are no longer tossed helplessly by the storms of stress. Instead, you stand, rooted in awareness, moving with life instead of against it. But stress is not only individual, it spreads like fire. One person's tension can ignite another's. A sharp word from a boss becomes an argument at home, which becomes a sleepless night, which becomes another day of exhaustion. In this way, stress multiplies, rippling through families, workplaces, even entire societies. To transform stress is not only an act of self-care, it is an act of compassion. When you calm your own mind, you break the cycle. You stop passing the fire to others. The Buddha spoke of compassion not as an abstract idea, but as a living response to suffering. When you recognize your own stress with kindness, you begin to recognize it in others. That coworker who snapped at you, they too are drowning. That stranger who cut you off in traffic, they too carry a burden you cannot see. Instead of reacting with anger, you learn to respond with patience. Your calmness becomes a gift, a ripple of peace in a stressed-out world. This is the quiet revolution of mindfulness. It does not change the outer world immediately, but it transforms the way you meet it. And slowly, like water smoothing stone, it changes everything. Yet, the mind resists. It whispers, "I don't have time to sit and breathe. My problems are too big for such a simple practice." But this is the very illusion that fuels stress, the belief that peace must be earned after the chaos is over. In truth, peace is only possible now, in the middle of the chaos. Waiting for the perfect moment to relax is like waiting for the ocean to stop moving before you swim. The waves will never stop, but you can learn to float. Let us imagine this in daily life. You wake in the morning, and instead of grabbing your phone, you sit for 3 breaths. Just 3. You notice the inhale. You notice the exhale. You feel your body resting on the bed. Already, the day feels different. Later, at work, when an email arrives that sparks anger, you pause before typing. You breathe once, twice, 3 times. Instead of reacting, you respond. Stress loses its grip. And at night, before sleep, instead of replaying every mistake, you return again to the breath. Slowly, the rope of tension loosens. Sleep comes more gently. These small acts of mindfulness may seem too simple to matter, but like drops of water carving a canyon, they shape your life. Each pause, each breath is a seed. Over time, those seeds grow into resilience, clarity, and freedom. This is the gift of Buddhist wisdom. Not escape, but transformation. Stress does not vanish, but it becomes a doorway. Through it, you discover patience. Through it, you discover compassion. Through it, you discover the strength that has always lived within you. And this is only the beginning. Because stress, as heavy as it feels, is just one face of suffering. Beyond it lies another layer, the illusion of permanence. The belief that life should stay the same, that jobs, relationships, and even identities should never change. When life inevitably shifts, this illusion shatters, and we are left in confusion. But just as mindfulness opens the door beyond stress, wisdom opens the door beyond change, that we live in a culture that glorifies stability. We tell ourselves stories about forever jobs, forever homes, forever love. We build plans as if life will bend to our design. And when the ground shifts, as it always does, we feel betrayed. The truth is that life never promised permanence. The only promise it made was change. Look back at your own life. Perhaps you once had a friend who felt like family, someone you believed would never leave. And yet, time moved, circumstances changed, and now you barely speak. Perhaps you once had a dream job, and you thought it would last forever, but restructuring, downsizing, or your own restlessness pulled you in another direction. Or perhaps you loved someone so deeply, you believed nothing could break it until one day it ended, and your heart broke with it. These moments cut deep because we believe the illusion that what we love will stay the same. Stress is born not only from pressure, but from this hidden expectation of permanence. We cling to how things were, or to how we believe they should be. When reality does not match, we suffer. It is like holding water in your hands. No matter how tight you squeeze, it slips away. And the tighter you cling, the more pain you feel. Buddhism calls this truth impermanence. At first, it sounds harsh, almost cruel. Everything changes, nothing lasts. But if you look more closely, impermanence is not a curse. It is the very reason beauty exists. Imagine a sunset that never faded. Would it move you in the same way? Imagine a flower that never wilted. Would its bloom be precious? Life's fleeting nature is not its flaw. It is its gift. The Buddha taught that to accept impermanence is to discover freedom. When you see that everything shifts, you stop demanding that it remain fixed. You release the impossible contract you made with life. You begin to flow with it instead of against it. Think of a river. It never stays the same. Each moment, the water moves, new currents form, and yet it is still the river. Your life is like that river. Your job changes, your relationships shift, your body ages, and yet there is still a flow, still a presence of being. The pain comes when you demand that the river stand still. The peace comes when you learn to float with its movement. This is not passive surrender. It is active wisdom. It means that when life changes, instead of saying, "This should not happen," you ask, "How can I meet this moment as it is?" That question opens the door to resilience. It turns chaos into growth. A simple practice can make this truth real. Each day, notice something small that changes. The warmth of your coffee cooling, the clouds shifting in the sky, the breath rising and falling. These reminders train your mind to see impermanence, not as loss, but as life itself. Over time, this awareness seeps into bigger changes. You begin to accept endings with more grace, to meet transitions with more strength. But impermanence also teaches compassion. When you realize that everyone you love, including yourself, is fragile and temporary, your heart softens. Anger loses its edge. That argument you cling to suddenly seems less important. You see the people around you not as obstacles, but as fleeting, precious beings. And you begin to treat them with more care, because you know they will not always be here. Neither will you. This shift is powerful. Stress begins to dissolve, not because life is easier, but because your grip is lighter. You no longer fight the changing tide. You ride it. You no longer fear endings as tragedies. You see them as part of the flow. Still, the mind resists. It cries out, "But if nothing lasts, what can I trust? Where can I find stability?" This fear is natural. The discovery of impermanence can feel like standing on ground that suddenly vanishes beneath your feet. But here lies the deeper gift of Buddhist wisdom. Even when everything changes, there is still something unshaken in your awareness. Think of the sky. Storms come and go. Clouds gather and scatter. Yet the sky itself is never harmed. In the same way, your awareness, your deepest presence, remains whole, even as jobs, relationships, and identities shift. Learning to trust that awareness gives you an anchor stronger than any external circumstance. This is where stress finally begins to transform. You see that the deadlines, the conflicts, the losses are not permanent prisons. They are passing storms in the sky of your awareness. And you, rooted in mindfulness, no longer have to be swept away. When you live with this understanding, something beautiful happens. Gratitude grows. You appreciate your loved ones more deeply because you know they are temporary. You savor ordinary moments because you know they will not repeat. You stop postponing joy for the future and start tasting it now in the fleeting breath of this moment. Impermanence, once feared, becomes a doorway to presence. Stress, once overwhelming, becomes a teacher of patience and compassion. Together, they guide you into a new way of being. One that is less about control and more about flow, less about clinging and more about presence. And yet, this is only the first step. Because even as you begin to accept impermanence, another truth emerges. Your actions matter. The choices you make today ripple outward into tomorrow. Every thought, every word, every deed plants seeds in the soil of your life. What grows from those seeds is the next challenge we face, the mystery of karma. Every action leaves a trace. You may not see it immediately, but it lingers, shaping the path ahead. A harsh word spoken in anger echoes long after the sound is faded. A small act of kindness, like holding the door for a stranger, ripples further than you can measure. We often underestimate this truth. We believe that what we do in the moment disappears when the moment ends. But the reality is that every choice plants a seed, and those seeds quietly grow into the garden of our lives. Karma is one of the most misunderstood ideas. Many people hear the word and think of punishment or reward, like a cosmic judge keeping score. But the Buddha taught something much simpler and far more empowering. Karma means action. It is the law of cause and effect. What you choose today creates the conditions of tomorrow. Not because someone out there is rewarding or punishing you, but because actions naturally bear fruit. Now think of it like planting in the soil. If you place corn in the ground, you cannot expect roses to grow. If you plant weeds, you cannot be surprised when they choke the garden. And if you sow seeds of love, patience, and generosity, the harvest will reflect that. Some seeds sprout quickly. Others lie dormant for months or even years, waiting for the right conditions. But eventually, what you plant will grow. In modern life, this truth explains so much of our hidden stress. Imagine someone who constantly reacts with anger. At first, it seems like each outburst ends when the shouting stops. But over time, those seeds of anger grow into broken relationships, mistrust, and loneliness. Or think of someone who numbs their stress with endless scrolling, drinking, or overspending. In the moment, the relief feels real. But those actions plant seeds of deeper anxiety, financial strain, or even addiction. The good news is that karma is not fixed. You are not trapped by the seeds you planted yesterday. You cannot dig them out of the soil, but you can choose what to plant now. Every moment holds this freedom. Every moment is a chance to sow something new. This is why mindfulness matters so much. Without awareness, we act unconsciously, repeating old habits, planting the same painful seeds again and again. But when we pause, breathe, and look clearly, we can choose differently. Instead of reacting with anger, we can respond with patience. Instead of numbing ourselves, we can face what hurts with courage. Each small shift plants a new seed, and slowly, the garden of our lives changes. Consider a woman who grew up in a home filled with criticism. Her instinct, as an adult, is to criticize herself, to believe she is never enough. This habit, repeated over years, becomes the soil of her suffering. But one day, she begins to practice self-kindness. She notices when the voice of criticism arises and replaces it with a gentle reminder. I am learning. I am growing. At first, it feels unnatural, like planting a fragile seed in hard ground. But over time, those small acts of kindness grow roots. Slowly, the soil softens. Slowly, the inner garden transforms. Karma is not fate. It is freedom. It reminds you that even if your past has been filled with pain, your future is not written in stone. You cannot erase what has been done, but you can shape what comes next. This is why the Buddha often compared karma to a cart pulled by oxen. The tracks behind you are set, but the direction ahead depends on the choices you make now. When you see life this way, responsibility becomes a gift. You realize that your actions matter, not only for yourself, but for everyone around you. A kind word can lift someone's spirit for days. A careless insult can wound for years. Your smallest choices ripple into the lives of others. And this awareness is not meant to make you fearful. It is meant to empower you. You have more influence than you imagine. Yet many of us live as if our choices are small, as if they do not matter. We tell ourselves, just one more angry outburst, one more night of distraction, one more careless word. But one more becomes 2, then 10, then a lifetime. The seeds we plant daily become the forest we live in tomorrow. This is why awareness is not optional. It is essential. So how do we bring this teaching into daily life? Start by noticing your intentions. Before you act, ask, what seed am I planting right now? If I speak these words, what fruit will they bear? If I take this action, will it bring peace or suffering? This pause, this moment of reflection, is where your power lies. Some people resist this teaching because it feels like a burden. They think, I can't carry the weight of every choice. But this is not about carrying weight. It is about stepping into freedom. When you realize that you are not powerless, that your choices matter, life begins to change. Stress loses some of its grip because you no longer feel like a victim of circumstance. You see yourself as a gardener with the tools to shape your future. This truth is not meant to create guilt. It is not about blaming yourself for the past. The Buddha was clear. You cannot unplant old seeds. What has been done will ripen in its own time. But you can stop adding more suffering. You can plant seeds of peace instead. And when you do, even the hardest soil begins to change. Imagine someone walking through a burned forest. The trees are blackened. The ground is scarred. It seems hopeless. But with patience, small green shoots begin to appear. A sapling grows, then another, until one day the forest is alive again. In the same way, even if your life feels burned by old choices, you can begin again. Each mindful action, each compassionate choice, is a seed of renewal. This is why the Buddha called karma both profound and practical. It explains why suffering arises, but it also offers a clear path forward. It does not demand perfection. It asks only for awareness, moment by moment, choice by choice. And so we begin to see stress differently. It is not just the weight of modern life. It is the result of countless seeds planted over time, seeds of striving, control, anger, and fear. But just as stress was created, it can be transformed. The garden can be replanted, and the harvest can change. Yet karma also points us beyond the personal. It reminds us that our lives are woven together. The seeds you plant do not grow only in your own soil. They spread into the world around you. Your anger can ignite someone else's pain. Your compassion can spark someone else's healing. We are all gardeners in a shared field. What we choose matters not just for ourselves, but for all beings. This is where the teaching becomes even more powerful. Because when you realize your suffering is not separate, when you see that your choices ripple outward, a new question arises. How can I use my life, my pain, my actions for the benefit of all? That question leads us into the next doorway. It is not enough to heal only ourselves. True freedom opens when we transform our suffering into compassion for others. It is the path of the Bodhisattva, the one who vows not to turn away from the pain of the world, but to embrace it, and through that embrace, to bring healing to all. There comes a moment in every life when pain feels too heavy to carry. You may feel it in the silence of your own room, where grief presses against your chest like a stone. You may feel it in the middle of a crowded street, surrounded by people who smile, but seem to carry invisible wounds of their own. And sometimes you may wonder, what is the point of all this? Why do we suffer, and why does it never seem to end? The Buddha's answer was radical. He did not say, run away from pain. He did not say, ignore it. Instead, he invited us to look directly into suffering, not with fear, but with courage. Because in suffering lies the doorway to compassion. This is the heart of the Bodhisattva path, to use pain not as a reason for despair, but as a spark for love that extends beyond yourself. The Bodhisattva is not a mystical figure far removed from daily life. A Bodhisattva can be anyone, any man, any woman, any child who chooses to meet suffering with compassion rather than avoidance. When your heart breaks, you do not close it. You let it open wider. When you encounter someone else's pain, you do not turn away. You lean in. In this way, personal suffering becomes sacred ground. Think about the moments when you have felt most deeply understood. Was it when someone tried to fix you? Or was it when someone simply sat with you, holding your pain without judgment. That presence, that willingness to share the burden, is the Bodhisattva spirit. It is not about solving every problem. It is about showing up again and again with an open heart. This path is not easy. The instinct of the human mind is to shield itself, to run from discomfort. We distract ourselves, numb ourselves, or build walls of anger to keep pain away. But each of these strategies only deepens isolation. The Bodhisattva chooses differently. They say, "I will not turn away. I will let suffering teach me tenderness." In modern life, this practice is more urgent than ever. Stress, loneliness, and anxiety are not just individual problems. They are collective. They weave through families, workplaces, communities. One person's despair touches another, but so does one person's compassion. A kind act, a listening ear, a moment of patience, these ripple through the fabric of life, creating spaces of healing where there was only despair. Consider a man who loses his job. At first, he feels shame, fear, anger. But instead of drowning alone, he chooses to share honestly with his community. In that sharing, others open up about their own struggles. What began as his personal suffering becomes a bridge of connection. Together, they discover that no one is truly alone in their pain. This is the Bodhisattva's heart at work transforming "Why me?" into "How can this help us?" The Buddha taught that our pain is not separate. It is part of a great tapestry of human experience. Your heartbreak echoes the heartbreak of countless others. Your anxiety mirrors theirs. When you open to this truth, compassion grows naturally. You see yourself in others, and others in yourself. This does not mean glorifying suffering. The Bodhisattva path does not celebrate pain for its own sake. Rather, it recognizes that pain, when met with awareness, can soften the heart. It can dissolve the illusion of separation. It can awaken the deepest strength within you, the strength to love. Imagine holding a fragile bird in your hands. If you grip too tightly, you harm it. If you refuse to hold it, it falls. Compassion is that delicate balance, holding suffering gently, neither crushing it with control nor abandoning it in fear. The Bodhisattva vow is simple yet profound. As long as suffering exists, I will not turn away. I will use my life to bring relief wherever I can. This vow does not demand perfection. It does not mean you will never feel anger or despair again. It means that even in your darkest moments, you will try to let suffering open you rather than close you. Think of the mother who stays awake all night with her sick child. She does not enjoy her child's pain, but in her sleepless care, her love deepens. Or think of the friend who shows up at your door with food when you are grieving. They cannot take away your loss, but their presence eases the weight. These everyday gestures are the living breath of the Bodhisattva path, and this path offers freedom. Because when you transform your relationship with suffering, you no longer fear it in the same way. You see that pain, while inevitable, is also workable. You see that even the hardest moments can carry meaning. And in that shift, you find resilience. You are no longer crushed by suffering. You are reshaped by it. This is where karma and the Bodhisattva path meet. Karma teaches that your actions ripple outward. The Bodhisattva path teaches that your suffering can become fuel for compassion. Together, they reveal a profound truth. Your life, with all its joys and sorrows, can be used for the benefit of all. So when stress rises, when impermanence cuts deep, when karma ripens in ways you do not expect, remember this: you are not powerless. You can choose to plant seeds of compassion. You can choose to let your suffering connect you to others rather than isolate you. And in doing so, you become part of a lineage of countless beings who, across centuries, have chosen to keep their hearts open. This does not mean you must carry the entire world's pain on your shoulders. The Bodhisattva path is not about drowning in suffering. It is about learning to breathe within it, to meet each moment with presence, to meet each person with kindness, to meet yourself with tenderness, and step by step, to transform the weight of suffering into the wings of compassion. And when you walk this path, something extraordinary happens. The very questions that once haunted you, why me? Why now? Begin to dissolve. In their place arises a new question. How can I serve with the life I have been given? This question is not heavy. It is liberating. It gives your pain meaning. It turns your suffering into a source of light for others. This is the gift of the Bodhisattva's heart, to show us that even in the darkest night, compassion can shine, to remind us that pain is not the end. It is a beginning. It is the soil in which the deepest love can grow. And so we come to the next step on this journey. If suffering is inevitable and compassion is possible, how do we navigate the chaos of life itself? When the ground feels like it is disappearing beneath our feet, where do we turn for guidance? Here, the Buddha offered a map clear, simple, and profound. The Four Noble Truths, a compass in the storm. There are days when life feels like quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. Problems pile up. Relationships unravel. Work demands grow heavier. Anxiety presses down on your chest. You feel as though the ground beneath you has vanished, and you are falling with nothing to hold on to. In those moments, the mind cries out, why is this happening to me? Where can I find solid ground? The Buddha faced this same question long ago. He looked deeply into human life and saw suffering everywhere. Sickness, old age, death, loss, fear, confusion. He did not turn away. He asked, what is the nature of this suffering? And is there a way beyond it? Out of this inquiry came the foundation of Buddhist wisdom, the Four Noble Truths. These truths are not abstract philosophy. They are a map, a compass, a practical guide to navigate the storms of existence. They speak directly to your pain, your stress, your longing for peace. They are simple enough to be understood in a single breath, yet deep enough to be practiced for a lifetime. The first truth is direct. Suffering exists. It is woven into the fabric of life. You cannot escape it by pretending it isn't there. Everyone knows the sting of disappointment, the ache of loneliness, the fear of uncertainty. To deny this is to live in illusion. To face it honestly is the beginning of freedom. But this truth is not meant to depress you. It is meant to awaken you. When you finally acknowledge your suffering, you stop wasting energy hiding from it. You stop pretending that life must always feel perfect. Instead, you begin to look it in the eye. And in that moment of honesty, a doorway opens. The second truth explains why suffering deepens. Clinging. We cling to how things should be. We cling to control, to comfort, to permanence. We resist the flow of life. Imagine gripping a rope so tightly that your hands begin to bleed. That is what clinging feels like in the heart. The tighter you hold on to the illusion of control, the more pain you create. This is not about blaming yourself. It is about seeing clearly. When you notice how often you say, this shouldn't be happening, or I can't live without this, you begin to see the roots of suffering. The problem is not life itself. The problem is the mind's demand that life obey its desires. The third truth is the light of hope. Freedom is possible. You do not need to erase suffering from existence. You need to release the clinging that fuels it. Just as a flame goes out when there is no more fuel, suffering fades when there is no grasping. Imagine loosening your grip on that rope. The pain eases. The wound begins to heal. In the same way, when you release the demand for life to be other than it is, your heart softens. Peace arises naturally. This freedom is not distant. It is available in each moment. Every time you let go of control, every time you breathe instead of resist, Every time you meet life as it is rather than how you think it should be, you taste liberation. The fourth truth is the path itself, the Noble Eightfold Path. It is not a list of commandments. It is a training, a practice, a way of living that cultivates wisdom, compassion, and clarity. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration together, they form a roadmap out of the cycle of suffering. Each step is a practice. Each step is a return to balance. Think of the Four Noble Truths as a doctor's diagnosis. The first truth says, there is illness. The second truth says, here is the cause. The third truth says, healing is possible. The fourth truth says, here is the medicine. Simple, clear, practical. Now imagine applying this to modern life. You wake in the morning, already anxious about the day. That anxiety is the first truth. You ask yourself why, and you see that you are clinging to a picture of how the day must go perfectly. That recognition is the second truth. You breathe, remind yourself that perfection is an illusion, and suddenly you feel lighter. That is the third truth. You commit to practicing mindfulness, speaking kindly, and staying present as you move through the day. That is the fourth truth in action. The Four Noble Truths are not distant relics of an ancient time. They are alive in the middle of traffic, in the heat of an argument, in the silence of a sleepless night. They are your compass in chaos. But this compass does not erase the storm. It guides you through it. The Buddha never promised a life without pain. He promised a way to meet pain with wisdom, to transform it into strength. And this is the real gift. You no longer fear suffering in the same way. You see it as part of the path. You learn from it. You grow through it. The practice of the Noble Eightfold Path begins with right view seen clearly. This means recognizing impermanence, karma, and the causes of suffering. It means understanding that every thought, word, and action matters. Right view is like cleaning your glasses so you can finally see the world as it is, not as you imagine it to be. From right view comes right intention, the decision to live with compassion, non-harming, and kindness. Instead of chasing selfish desires, you plant seeds of care for yourself and others. This intention shapes every choice that follows. Right speech reminds you that words are powerful seeds. A careless word can wound. A kind word can heal. Speaking truthfully, gently, and with purpose becomes a daily practice of planting good seeds. Right action extends this to your deeds. It asks, are my choices creating harm or healing? It does not demand perfection, but it calls you to live in alignment with compassion. Right livelihood reminds you that even your work is part of the path. Whatever you do to support yourself, does it bring more peace or more harm to the world? This reflection transforms even ordinary jobs into opportunities for practice. Right effort is not about forcing. It is about cultivating balance. You nurture the wholesome seeds in your heart: patience, compassion, clarity, and gently weed out the unwholesome seeds: anger, greed, ignorance. Right mindfulness is the practice of presence. Each breath, each step, each moment becomes an opportunity to return to awareness. Stress cannot dominate a mind that is rooted in the present. Right concentration is the training of focus, the stillness of samadhi. It steadies the mind like an anchor, allowing you to remain calm even when storms rage around you. Together, these 8 steps are a path you can walk, not in theory, but in daily life. They are the medicine for a restless world. And yet, the mind will resist. It will say, this is too hard. I don't have time. My problems are too big. But the Four Noble Truths whisper a gentle reminder. You do not need to master everything at once. You begin where you are, with one breath, one intention, one kind word. Slowly, step by step, The path reveals itself. This is the power of the compass. Even when you feel lost, even when the chaos is overwhelming, you can return to these truths. They will guide you back to balance, again and again. And as you practice, something shifts. You begin to notice that suffering no longer feels like pure darkness. It becomes a teacher. It becomes the very soil in which wisdom grows. And in that realization, you discover resilience you never knew you had. But this is only part of the journey. Because to truly live these truths, you must cultivate a deeper stillness. Not just moments of calm, but an unshakable inner anchor that steadies you in every storm. This stillness has a name: samadhi, the power of meditative concentration. It is here that the path deepens. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls. The rain lashes against your skin. The trees bend under the pressure. In the middle of it all, you search for something steady to hold on to. This is what modern life feels like for many of us. Emails, deadlines, arguments, news, responsibilities. Each one is another gust of wind pulling us off balance. Without an anchor, the storm carries us wherever it pleases. But within the teachings of the Buddha lies a profound anchor: samadhi, the power of concentration and inner stillness. Samadhi does not mean escaping the storm. It means finding the strength to stand in it without being blown away. It is the training of the mind to stay steady, calm, and present no matter what arises. This is not just about sitting cross-legged in silence. It is about cultivating a focus so clear that even in the chaos of daily life, you carry peace within you. Our modern minds are restless. We are pulled in 100 directions at once. One moment we are worried about tomorrow. The next, we are replaying yesterday. Rarely are we here, fully in this breath, fully in this step. This constant scattering of attention fuels stress, anxiety, and exhaustion. Samadhi is the medicine for this restlessness. It gathers the mind back into one place. It teaches us how to be fully alive in this moment. Think of a candle flame in a dark room. When the air is still, the flame burns steady, clear, bright. When the air is chaotic, the flame flickers wildly, casting strange shadows. Your mind is that flame. Samadhi is the stillness of air that allows the flame to shine without distortion. At first, training in samadhi feels difficult. The mind jumps like a monkey from branch to branch. Sit for even 1 minute, and you will notice thoughts rushing in. I should check my phone. I forgot to pay that bill. What if tomorrow goes wrong? This is natural. The mind has been trained for years to scatter. It will not become still overnight, but with gentle practice, something begins to shift. You focus on the breath. Inhale, exhale. You focus on a simple sound, a word, a candle flame. And slowly, the monkey mind begins to calm. Slowly, the storm inside begins to quiet. In these moments, you discover that peace is not something you have to chase. It is something that appears when the mind becomes still. This stillness is not fragile. It is strength. It creates a pause between what happens and how you react. Without samadhi, life pushes your buttons and you react automatically: anger, fear, frustration. With samadhi, there is space. You notice the trigger. You feel the emotion. But you are not possessed by it. You have a choice. That pause, that moment of freedom, is where transformation happens. Imagine someone insults you. Without stillness, the fire of anger rises instantly, spilling out in words you regret. But with samadhi, you notice the anger rise. You breathe. You watch it like a wave in the ocean. It swells, but eventually it fades. You remain steady, choosing not to add more harm. This is the power of inner stillness. It gives you freedom from being controlled by every impulse. The Buddha compared this practice to taming a wild elephant. At first, the elephant thrashes, dangerous and unruly. But with patience, kindness, and steady training, it becomes strong yet gentle, powerful yet calm. Your mind is that elephant. Untrained, it drags you into chaos. Trained through samadhi, it becomes a source of immense power and stability. This inner stillness also reveals something deeper. Your awareness is vast, bigger than any storm, bigger than any thought. When you rest in samadhi, you realize that you are not your anger, not your fear, not even your restless thoughts. You are the sky, and these emotions are only passing clouds. They come and go, but the sky remains. Carrying this stillness into daily life changes everything. A busy office no longer feels like a battlefield. Traffic no longer feels like torment. Arguments no longer feel like disasters. Instead, you move through them with calm. You may still feel stress, but it does not consume you. You may still feel sadness, but it does not drown you. You remain rooted, steady, present. This does not mean you become detached or cold. Quite the opposite. Samadhi opens the heart. Because when you are no longer controlled by your own storms, you have space to see others clearly. You notice their pain. You listen deeply. You respond with compassion rather than reaction. Stillness does not separate you from life. It connects you more deeply to it. In modern terms, you could call samadhi mental resilience. Scientists now confirm that meditation rewires the brain, strengthening areas linked to focus, calm, and empathy. But beyond science, the experience is deeply human. It is the relief of finally resting. The relief of knowing that no matter how loud the world becomes, there is a quiet space within you that nothing can touch. But the practice must be consistent. Stillness is not a one-time achievement. It is like building muscle. Each day, each moment of practice strengthens the mind. Over time, what once felt impossible, staying calm in chaos, becomes natural. You can begin simply. Sit for 5 minutes a day. Focus on your breath. When thoughts come, do not fight them. Notice them. Let them pass. Return to the breath. Day by day, the flame steadies. Day by day, the storm quiets. And slowly, you begin to carry that calm into every corner of your life. Samadhi is not about escaping the world. It is about engaging with it more fully. When your mind is scattered, you miss life. You eat without tasting. You walk without noticing. You speak without listening. But when the mind is still, you begin to truly live. Each meal becomes rich with flavor. Each step becomes a moment of presence. Each conversation becomes an act of connection. This is the gift of inner stillness. It brings you back to life itself. It reminds you that peace is not something to be found in the future. It is here, in this breath, waiting for you to notice. And yet, as the practice deepens, another challenge arises. A mind craves certainty. It wants solid ground to stand on, guarantees to hold. But what happens when you realize there is no solid ground? What happens when you see that everything is fluid, uncertain, empty of permanence? This is the teaching of the Heart Sutra, the freedom of groundlessness. It is the next step in the journey that all of us long for solid ground. We crave certainty like thirsty travelers crave water. We want guarantees in love, security in work, stability in health. We tell ourselves stories that tomorrow will be safe if today is under control. And yet, life repeatedly shows us the opposite. A diagnosis shatters our health. A layoff takes away our job. A relationship we thought was unshakable falls apart. In those moments, the earth itself feels like it disappears beneath our feet. We are left suspended in air, grasping for something to hold. The Buddha faced this very human need for certainty and offered a truth so radical that at first it can feel terrifying. There is no fixed ground. This is the wisdom of the Heart Sutra, one of the most profound teachings in all of Buddhism. Its message is simple, yet deeply unsettling to the ordinary mind. Everything is empty of inherent existence. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is separate. Nothing stands alone. What does this mean? It does not mean that life is meaningless. It does not mean that nothing exists. It means that everything you see, everything you hold, everything you think you are, is in constant relationship, in constant change, without a permanent core. The chair you sit on depends on wood, and the wood depends on a tree, and the tree depends on sunlight, water, and soil. In the same way, you depend on air, food, relationships, and countless conditions that keep you alive in this very moment. You are not a fixed self. You are a living web of interconnection. At first, this truth can feel like stepping off a cliff. The mind wants a solid self to cling to, a permanent identity to rely on. When that illusion dissolves, fear arises. If nothing is solid, then who am I? How can I survive in this uncertainty? But if you stay with the teaching, something unexpected emerges. You begin to see that freedom lies not in clinging to solid ground, but in learning to float. Imagine falling into water for the first time. Your instinct is to thrash, to fight, to grasp at anything solid. But the more you struggle, the more you sink. Then someone tells you, let go, relax, trust the water. And to your surprise, your body begins to float. The Heart Sutra is like that. It invites you to stop thrashing for certainty and discover that you can float in the groundlessness of life. When you see that, everything is empty of permanence. Your relationship to suffering changes. Loss still hurts, but you no longer treat it as the destruction of something eternal. You see it as part of the flow. Anxiety still arises, but you no longer demand certainty from the uncertain. You begin to move with life instead of against it. This freedom is not about blind optimism. It is about a deep, fearless acceptance of reality. You realize that you can lose everything, the job, the house, the relationship. Even this body can still something remains. Your awareness, your ability to love, your ability to meet the present moment fully. This is why the Heart Sutra declares, form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The things you cling to, your body, your identity, your possessions, are empty of permanence. Yet at the same time, they are not nothing. They are alive, interdependent, precious because of their impermanence. A flower is beautiful precisely because it will fade. A life is meaningful precisely because it will end. Groundlessness, when embraced, is not despair. It is freedom. It is the release from the exhausting demand that life provide guarantees it cannot give. It is the quiet courage to stand in the middle of uncertainty and still live, still love, still open your heart. Think of a bird resting on a branch. The bird does not trust the branch never to break. It trusts its wings. In the same way, when you no longer depend on the illusion of solid ground, you discover your own wings, awareness, compassion, resilience. These are what carry you when life shifts beneath you. This teaching is especially vital in the modern world. Technology, politics, economies, even climates shift faster than we can predict. The more we cling to certainty, the more anxious we become. But when we accept impermanence, when we trust the truth of emptiness, our anxiety softens. We no longer need the world to be fixed. We learn to dance with its constant motion. Practicing this begins with small steps. Notice the times you demand certainty. I must know exactly how this will turn out. I must be sure this person will never leave. Pause, breathe. Remember the bird on the branch. Trust your wings instead of the branch. Trust your awareness instead of the illusion of control. Over time, this practice changes the way you live. You stop postponing joy, waiting for the perfect conditions that never arrive. You begin to savor life as it is, fleeting, fragile, alive. You see that each breath is precious precisely because it is not guaranteed. Each conversation is meaningful precisely because it may never happen again. This awareness softens the heart. You become less rigid, less afraid. You stop needing to win every argument, to secure every outcome, to cling to every possession. You realize that freedom does not come from control. It comes from letting go. And in that letting go, something profound awakens. You discover that emptiness is not cold or hollow. It is spacious, vast, alive with possibility. Like the open sky, it holds everything yet clings to nothing. When you rest in this spaciousness, you feel lighter, freer, more at peace than you ever did, grasping for certainty. The Heart Sutra teaches that this freedom is available to everyone. You do not need to be a monk or a scholar. You only need the courage to let go of your illusions and trust the flow of life. You only need the willingness to float in the groundlessness that has always been their dot. And when you do, you begin to notice something else. You are not alone in this. Others, too, are struggling to find their footing. Others, too, are afraid of uncertainty. And just as your awareness grows, so does your compassion. You begin to see that groundlessness is not just your challenge. It is our shared human experience. This realization leads to the next truth, that connection is not a luxury, but a necessity. That we do not walk this path alone. That Sangha, the community of seekers, is the strength that carries us when our own strength falters. When you face the truth of groundlessness, it can feel lonely at first. To stand in a world without guarantees, without solid ground, can stir fear. The mind whispers, if nothing is permanent, if nothing can be controlled, then I am truly alone. But this is an illusion. For while life is uncertain, we are never meant to walk through it alone. The Buddha reminded us again and again, the path is not walked in isolation. It is walked in connection, in community, in Sangha. Sangha is a Sanskrit word that means community. But in the deepest sense, it is not just any group of people. It is the community of those who walk the path of awakening together. It is the circle of fellow travelers who remind you when you forget that peace is possible. It is the mirror that reflects your inner wisdom back to you when your own sight is clouded. Think about the moments in your life when you felt most supported. Maybe it was a friend who sat with you when your world was falling apart. Maybe it was a teacher who believed in you when you could not believe in yourself. Maybe it was a stranger whose kindness reminded you of humanity's goodness. Each of these moments carried the spirit of Sangha. They reminded you that your suffering was not private. They reminded you that you are held in a larger web of connection. Modern life often pulls us toward isolation. We hide our struggles behind screens. We compare our messy realities to the polished surfaces others display online. We tell ourselves that no one could possibly understand our pain. But this isolation is a dangerous illusion. When you believe your suffering is unique, you drown in shame. When you hide, you cut yourself off from the very connection that could heal you. The Sangha breaks this illusion. It reminds you that your pain is not separate. Your struggles are not unique failures. They are part of the shared human story. And when you open your heart to others, you find that their struggles mirror your own. Their tears echo your tears. Their hopes echo your hopes. In this recognition, something shifts. The heavy weight of isolation begins to lift. The Buddha once said that spiritual friendship is not just half of the path, it is the whole path. Why? Because awakening is not a solo achievement. It is a shared awakening. Just as a fire grows stronger when logs are placed together, your practice grows stronger when it is nurtured by others. In Sangha, you are reminded of your own strength when you forget it. A Dharma friend listens without judgment when your heart is heavy. Another walks beside you in silence when words are not enough. Together, you hold space for each other's growth. This is not about shallow comfort. It is about radical honesty and compassion, the courage to help each other wake up, even when it is uncomfortable. Imagine a circle of people sitting in meditation. The room is quiet, filled with steady breaths. Alone, it might be hard to sit still, but in the presence of others, your spine straightens, your mind steadies. Their calm strengthens yours, and your calm strengthens theirs. This is Sangha in action, each person carrying the weight for all, each person lifted by the presence of others. In daily life, Sangha can take many forms. It might be a meditation group. It might be a circle of friends committed to honesty and compassion. It might even be a single person who reminds you, again and again, of your deeper self. Sangha is less about numbers and more about intention. Even one genuine Dharma friend can become a lifeline, but Sangha is not only human. The trees, the rivers, the animals, all are part of the larger community of life. When you sit quietly in nature, you feel held by something greater. The rustle of leaves, the song of birds, the vastness of the sky, these too are reminders that you are not alone. They too form a Sangha, supporting you in your practice of awareness and compassion. This truth is vital in a world that encourages self-reliance to the point of isolation. Yes, inner stillness is important. Yes, individual practice matters. But without connection, without community, the path becomes brittle. Sangha reminds you that awakening is not about becoming a solitary hero. It is about remembering your interdependence, your belonging, your shared journey with all beings. When you open to Sangha, you begin to see that connection itself is medicine. A kind word from a friend can ease stress more deeply than hours of worry. A shared silence can calm the mind more than any distraction. A simple act of support can rekindle hope when you thought it was gone. This is the healing power of connection, and it flows both ways. As much as you receive from Sangha, you also give. Your presence matters. Your compassion strengthens others. Even your willingness to share your pain can be a gift, because it gives others permission to share theirs. Together, you weave a fabric strong enough to hold the weight of suffering and transform it into resilience. This is why the Buddha placed such importance on community. Alone, it is easy to forget. Together, we remember. Alone, it is easy to give up. Together, we endure. Alone, it is easy to believe our pain defines us. Together, we see that it is only one thread in the vast tapestry of human life. The strength of Sangha is not about removing suffering. It is about carrying it together. It is about transforming isolation into solidarity, despair into compassion, fear into courage. And when you experience this, you realize something profound. Connection is not just comforting, it is essential for awakening. So when the truth of groundlessness feels overwhelming, when the lack of certainty feels like too much to bear, turn to Sangha. Lean on others. Let them remind you that you are not alone. Let them carry you when you are tired, and carry them when they are weary. This is the shared journey. This is the strength of connection. And yet, even with Sangha, the mind often wanders to the future. We tell ourselves that peace will come someday, when life finally calms down, when our problems are finally solved. But what if that peace is not waiting in the future? What if it is here, now, hidden in the very breath you are taking? This is the next truth. Healing in the now, beyond the illusion of time. So much of our suffering comes not from the present, but from the stories we carry about the past and the fears we project into the future. We replay old mistakes like a broken record. We cling to memories of what was lost, wishing we could turn back time. Or we live in the future, planning, worrying, imagining disasters that have not yet happened. The mind runs endlessly backward and forward, yet rarely rests here, in the only place life is truly lived. Now, we believe healing is a future event. Once I get through this, I'll feel better. Once I achieve that, I'll finally be happy. But the truth is, the future never arrives. When tomorrow comes, it is not tomorrow. It is still now. And the past, no matter how vivid, is only memory appearing in this present moment. Time is not as solid as we imagine. It is a construction of the mind. The only reality is here, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. The Buddha pointed directly to this. He taught that liberation does not wait in some distant future. It is available here and now. Freedom is not about erasing the past or controlling the future. It is about meeting this moment with awareness, as it is, without resistance. Healing happens now or not at all. Think of the times you felt peace. Perhaps sitting quietly in nature, watching the sunset. Perhaps listening to music that touched your heart. Perhaps holding a loved one close. In those moments, you were not worrying about the past or chasing the future. You were present. You were here. And in that presence, healing flowed naturally. But our minds are restless. We are trained to chase. We believe happiness lies around the next corner. More money, more success, more recognition, more security. And so we postpone our lives, waiting for the perfect moment. But perfection never comes. What comes is the constant unfolding of now. If you miss it, you miss your life. This is not to deny the importance of memory or planning. The past can teach us. The future requires preparation. But when we live only in those realms, we disconnect from life itself. It is like staring at the map and forgetting to walk the path. Presence brings us back to the path. Consider the breath. It does not belong to the past. It does not belong to the future. It belongs only here, now. When you pay attention to the breath, you anchor yourself in reality. You remind yourself that life is happening now, not in some imagined timeline. Each inhale is new. Each exhale is release. In this awareness, anxiety softens. The heart begins to rest. This is why mindfulness is sometimes called the practice of coming home. Home is not a place in the past or a destination in the future. Home is the present moment. When you arrive here fully, you realize that the peace you have been searching for has always been available. It was never lost. It was only overlooked. Modern culture makes this teaching even more urgent. We are surrounded by distractions designed to pull us out of the now. Endless notifications, constant news cycles, a culture of productivity that tells us rest is laziness. In this environment, presence is an act of rebellion. To sit, to breathe, to be fully here is to step outside the madness and reclaim your life. But presence is not always easy. Sometimes the now is painful. Sometimes the present moment is filled with grief, anger, or fear. In those times, the temptation is to escape into the past or future. But healing comes only by meeting the pain where it is. To breathe with the grief, to sit with the fear, to hold the anger with compassion. This does not mean wallowing. It means refusing to abandon yourself. It means choosing to stay present, even when it hurts. And something remarkable happens when you do. The pain begins to shift. The grief softens into tenderness. The fear transforms into courage. The anger reveals the hurt beneath it. When you stop running, you discover that the present moment is not your enemy. It is your teacher. This is why great teachers often say, "Don't waste your suffering." If you are sad, be present with your sadness. If you are joyful, be present with your joy. Whatever arises, meet it fully. Because in that meeting, healing unfolds. Think of a child crying. If you ignore the child, the cries grow louder. If you scold the child, the cries turn into shame. But if you hold the child with love, the cries soften. A child begins to calm. Your emotions are the same. They do not need to be exiled. They need to be embraced. And the embrace can only happen now, not later. This is the doorway to freedom. Because once you discover that healing is available now, you stop chasing life. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You begin to live. You taste your food. You notice the colors of the sky. You hear the sound of laughter more deeply. You discover beauty hidden in the ordinary dot, and in this discovery, gratitude grows. You realize that each moment is a gift, unrepeatable and precious. You stop rushing past your own life. You begin to savor it. Even the difficult moments become meaningful because you meet them fully. This practice does not erase the past. It transforms your relationship with it. Memories still arise, but they no longer control you. They become teachers instead of prisons. Nor does it erase the future. You still plan, but without anxiety. The future becomes an unfolding mystery rather than a looming threat. Healing in the now is not about denying time. It is about seeing clearly. Time exists in the mind, but life exists only here. The more you return to this truth, the more freedom you find. And yet, as you deepen in presence, another truth emerges. Beneath the surface of change, beneath the illusion of time, there is something unbroken within you. Something that does not depend on past or future. Something that remains whole, no matter what happens. This is the discovery of your true nature, your unbroken self. There is a place within you that pain cannot touch. It may not always feel that way. When grief floods your heart, when anxiety tightens your chest, when loss breaks your world apart, it feels as if every part of you is damaged. You may believe that suffering defines you, that trauma has left permanent scars on your soul. But look closer. Beneath the surface storms, there is an awareness that remains untouched. A part of you that has always been whole and will always be whole. The Buddha pointed to this truth when he spoke of our original nature. He did not mean a personality or a fixed identity. He meant the clear, luminous awareness that is present in every moment. This awareness is not damaged by stress or grief. It is not defined by anger or fear. It is the open sky in which all storms appear and disappear without ever harming the sky itself. Think of a mirror. When dust gathers on its surface, it no longer reflects clearly. But the mirror itself is not damaged by the dust. Wipe it clean, and its clarity shines again. In the same way, your awareness may be clouded by fear, by anger, by confusion, but it is never destroyed. Beneath the dust, your true nature remains unbroken. This truth is not abstract. You can taste it in experience. Think of a time when you were overwhelmed by emotion, perhaps anger, sadness, or fear. And yet, even in the middle of that storm, a small part of you noticed it happening. I am angry. I am sad. That noticing awareness was not angry or sad. It simply observed. That is your unbroken self. That is the space where healing begins. When you learn to rest in this awareness, suffering loses its power to define you. Stress may arise, but you no longer say, I am stress. You say, stress is here. Grief may appear, but you no longer say, I am broken. You say, grief is here. This subtle shift is profound. It creates space between who you are and what you experience. You are not the storm. You are the sky. This discovery brings freedom. Because if you are not defined by your suffering, then suffering becomes workable. You no longer need to fight it or fear it. You can meet it with compassion, knowing that beneath it, you remain whole. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Therapists speak of the observing self, the part of us that can notice thoughts and feelings without being consumed by them. Practices like mindfulness and meditation strengthen this awareness, allowing us to step out of the grip of anxiety, depression, or trauma. But long before psychology, The Buddha taught the same truth. Awareness is the key to freedom. This does not mean denying pain. It does not mean pretending you are unaffected. It means that even in the middle of pain, you remember there is more to you than this. You remember that the pain is passing through, like clouds across the sky, and you learn to hold it gently without losing yourself in it. Imagine a vase that falls and shatters. You may feel like that vase broken beyond repair, but awareness reveals that you are not the vase. You are the space in which the vase appeared and disappeared. That space remains whole, no matter what happens within it. This realization is not meant to make you cold or detached. On the contrary, it opens the heart. When you see that you are not defined by suffering, you no longer need to hide from it. You can meet it fully with courage and compassion. And in doing so, you become more available to others. You can hold their suffering too, without being crushed by it. This is the heart of resilience. Life will bring storms. That cannot be changed. But how you meet them can be transformed. When you know your unbroken self, you stop fearing the storms. You know they cannot destroy you. You know you are larger than anything that happens to you. This truth also reshapes your relationship with mortality. The body is fragile. It will age. It will weaken. It will eventually die. But awareness is not bound by the body. It is not born, and it does not die. When you rest in this awareness, the fear of death softens. You begin to see life not as a fragile possession to cling to, but as a precious gift to be lived fully, here and now. And this changes everything. You stop postponing love, waiting for the perfect moment. You stop postponing kindness, waiting for the right opportunity. You stop postponing life, waiting for guarantees that will never come. You begin to live now from the wholeness of your unbroken self. This is not always easy. The mind will forget. Old habits of fear and clinging will return. But each time you practice, each time you return to awareness, you strengthen the memory of who you truly are. Step by step, you reclaim your life from the grip of illusion. And as you walk this path, you realize something profound. Your healing is not only for you. When you live from your unbroken self, you become a source of healing for others. Your presence reminds them of their own wholeness. Your compassion awakens their own strength. In this way, your personal freedom becomes part of a collective freedom. This is the deeper meaning of healing in the now. It is not just about personal peace. It is about living from the truth of your unbroken self, here and now, so that you can bring peace to the world around you. And so the journey continues. Because even as you discover this wholeness, the path does not end. There are deeper truths still waiting. That suffering is not something to be eliminated, but embraced for the benefit of all beings. That the Bodhisattva's heart calls us not only to free ourselves, but to use our freedom for others. This is where the journey turns next. There is a deep instinct in all of us to escape suffering. When pain comes, we look for ways to run. We distract ourselves with work, with entertainment, with endless scrolling. We bury ourselves in food, drink, or shopping. We tell ourselves, if I can just escape this, then I'll be okay. And yet, the harder we run, the more suffering follows us. It clings like a shadow, refusing to be left behind. The Buddha offered another way. He taught that freedom does not come from escaping suffering, but from embracing it. This does not mean enjoying pain or seeking it out. It means opening your heart to the reality that suffering is part of life, and then using it as fuel for compassion, for wisdom, for love. This is the heart of the Bodhisattva path. A Bodhisattva is someone who vows not only to free themselves from suffering, but to stay present in the world of pain until all beings are free. It is a vow of radical compassion. It says, my liberation is tied to yours. I cannot turn away from your suffering, because your suffering is also mine. At first, this may sound overwhelming. The world's suffering is vast wars, poverty, loneliness, injustice. How can one person possibly hold it all? The mind resists. I can barely handle my own pain. How can I embrace the pain of all beings? But the Bodhisattva path does not demand that you solve every problem. It asks that you keep your heart open. It asks that you do not turn away, not think about the times you have suffered deeply. In those moments, what did you need most? Not someone to erase the pain that is impossible. What you needed was someone to be with you, someone to sit beside you without judgment, someone to remind you that you were not alone. This is the essence of the Bodhisattva's compassion. It is not about fixing everything. It is about being fully present with suffering, so that suffering is no longer unbearable. The Bodhisattva understands that suffering connects us. Your grief echoes mine. My fear mirrors yours. When we open to this shared truth, compassion naturally arises. We stop seeing others as strangers. We see them as fellow travelers in the endless cycle of joy and pain. This is why the Bodhisattva vow is so powerful. It transforms suffering from something to escape into something that unites us. Instead of asking, "Why me?" we begin to ask, "How can this help others?" Even our personal pain becomes meaningful when it deepens our compassion. For the pain of others, consider a mother who has lost a child. Her grief is unbearable. But later, when she meets another grieving parent, her heart opens in a way that words cannot describe. She understands their pain because she has lived it. In her presence, the other parent feels less alone. Her suffering has been transformed into compassion. This is the Bodhisattva's way, to turn wounds into bridges of connection. This path is not about perfection. You will still feel anger, despair, exhaustion. But each time you choose to open your heart instead of closing it, you are walking the Bodhisattva path. Each time you respond with kindness instead of cruelty, patience instead of judgment, you are participating in the liberation of all beings. In modern life, this practice is more necessary than ever. The world is filled with noise, division, and fear. It is easy to become numb, to turn away from suffering because it feels too heavy. But numbness is not freedom, it is a prison of indifference. The Bodhisattva path invites us to stay awake, even when it hurts. Because only in awakening can we bring healing. You may wonder, what difference can my small compassion make? But compassion is never small. A single candle can light a dark room. A single act of kindness can ripple through countless lives. You may never see the full impact of your compassion, but it matters. Every time you meet suffering with love instead of fear, you plant seeds of healing in the world. The Bodhisattva also practices equanimity. This means opening the heart, not just to those we love, but to all beings. Even those who hurt us. Even those we find difficult. This does not mean excusing harm or ignoring injustice. It means recognizing that even those who cause suffering are themselves caught in suffering. Their actions are the fruit of ignorance, fear, and pain. To meet them with hatred only deepens the cycle. To meet them with compassion is to break it. This is not easy. The mind resists saying, they don't deserve compassion. But the Bodhisattva remembers, compassion is not about deserving. It is about understanding. When we see the suffering beneath harmful actions, our hearts soften. We may still set boundaries. We may still seek justice. But we do so without hatred. We do so with the intention of healing, not revenge. This is how the Bodhisattva embraces suffering, not by drowning in it, not by ignoring it, but by holding it with boundless compassion. They see suffering clearly, and they respond with love. They transform poison into medicine. And in this practice, they discover freedom. Because when you stop running from suffering, it loses its power to control you. When you open to it with compassion, it becomes the very path of awakening. This path does not belong only to saints or monks. It belongs to anyone who chooses compassion over indifference, courage over fear, love over hatred. Every time you smile at a stranger, every time you comfort a friend, every time you breathe deeply instead of lashing out, you walk the Bodhisattva's path. The world needs Bodhisattvas now more than ever. Not perfect beings, but ordinary people willing to keep their hearts open in extraordinary times. People who refuse to turn away. People who use their own suffering to deepen their love for others. And here lies the next step. Because as we embrace suffering for all beings, we also begin to see that compassion must extend beyond individuals. It must embrace the world itself, the air, the water, the forests, the animals. Our suffering is tied not only to human hearts, but to the planet that sustains us. This awakening leads us into the teaching of interbeing, the truth that all life is connected. When we first think of compassion, we often imagine caring for people, our families, our friends, those who cross our path. But the Bodhisattva's vision is wider, deeper, boundless. It sees that suffering is not only human. The earth suffers. The rivers, the forests, the animals, all carry wounds from our ignorance and greed. To embrace suffering for all beings means opening our hearts to the web of life itself. This truth is beautifully expressed in the Kali teaching of interbeing. Interbeing means nothing exists in isolation. Each thing contains all things. A sheet of paper contains the sunshine, the rain, the soil, the logger, the mill, the teacher, the student. Without the sun, no tree could grow. Without the rain, no tree could live. Without the tree, there is no paper. In the same way, you contain the whole cosmos. You are not a separate self, you are the continuation of countless causes and conditions. When you see this clearly, compassion becomes natural. Because harming another is harming yourself. Destroying the forest is destroying your own lungs. Polluting the river is poisoning your own blood. Exploiting another person is wounding your own heart. Interbeing reveals that separation is an illusion. We rise together and we fall together. The Bodhisattva, seeing this truth, extends compassion without limit. Their love is not selective. It is not only for those they like, or those who treat them kindly. It embraces all beings, even those unseen, even those unloved by the world. A worm in the soil, a bird in the sky, a child in a distant country. All are held in the same heart of compassion. This vision changes the way we live. We begin to make choices not only for ourselves, but for the whole. We ask, how does this action affect the earth? How does this purchase affect the worker who made it? How does this word affect the person who hears it? Every choice becomes an expression of interbeing. Every act becomes an opportunity to nourish life instead of harm it. In modern times, this teaching is more urgent than ever. Climate change, deforestation, pollution, these are not distant problems. They are cries of suffering from the very planet that sustains us. To live as a bodhisattva means to hear these cries and to respond with compassion. To see the earth not as a resource to exploit, but as a mother to protect. To see animals not as commodities, but as fellow beings who share our breath. This compassion is not abstract. It can be lived in simple, daily ways. Choosing to walk instead of drive. Choosing to recycle. Choosing to eat with mindfulness, grateful for the life that sustains you. Choosing to speak and act in ways that honor the interconnectedness of all beings. These are not small acts. They are the living heart of interbeing. When you live this way, something shifts inside. You feel less alone. You begin to sense the trees as companions, the rivers as teachers, the sky as a vast home. You realize that you are never separate, never cut off. You belong to life, and life belongs to you. This belonging eases loneliness, softens fear, and awakens gratitude. The Bodhisattva's compassion is like the ocean vast, deep, embracing every river that flows into it. It does not discriminate between clean and dirty water. It accepts all, transforms all, holds all. When your heart expands like this, your own suffering becomes lighter, because you see that you are part of something larger. You see that your pain is not just yours, it is part of the great fabric of life. And in that recognition, compassion becomes endless. This does not mean you must carry the weight of the world alone. A bodhisattva does not drown in compassion. They learn to breathe within it, to trust that every small act of love matters. They know that one person cannot solve every problem, but one person can plant seeds of healing that ripple far beyond what can be seen. Think of a drop of water falling into a pond. The ripples move outward in circles, touching the entire surface. In the same way, your compassion, however small, ripples through the web of life. A kind word eases a friend's burden, who then speaks kindly to another, who then treats someone else with patience. A single act of care spreads further than you can imagine. This is the power of interbeing. It reminds us that nothing is separate, and so nothing is insignificant. Every thought, every word, every deed contributes to the whole. This is both a responsibility and a gift. It means your life matters. It means you are never powerless. When you live from this awareness, even ordinary moments become sacred. Washing dishes becomes an act of gratitude for the water, the soil, the hands that made the plate. Breathing becomes a reminder of the trees that give oxygen and the earth that holds you. Eating becomes a communion with the sun, the rain, the farmer, the cook. Life itself becomes a prayer of interbeing, and so the Bodhisattva path deepens. It is not about escaping the world, but embracing it fully with all its suffering, all its beauty, all its interconnection. It is about transforming pain into compassion, isolation into connection, ignorance into wisdom. Yet even as we embrace this vast vision, the mind still struggles. Fear whispers, "If I open my heart this wide, I will break. If I care for all beings, the weight will crush me." But the truth is the opposite. The more the heart opens, the stronger it becomes. The more compassion flows, the lighter you feel. Because you are no longer carrying only your own pain, you are carried by the great current of life itself. This is the paradox of compassion. What feels like a burden becomes freedom. What feels like too much becomes strength. And what feels like endless suffering becomes the doorway to boundless love. From here, the path leads naturally into the next great truth. If everything is interbeing, if all life is connected, then forgiveness becomes essential. Forgiveness not only for others, but for ourselves. Because only in forgiveness can compassion flow freely, unblocked by the chains of resentment. There are wounds that live inside us like stones. Words spoken years ago still echo in our minds. Betrayals from the past still tighten our chest when we think of them. Mistakes we made ourselves still sting long after the moment has passed. We carry these stones of resentment, guilt, and shame everywhere we go. Sometimes we hardly notice them, but they weigh us down, making life heavier than it needs to be. Forgiveness is the act of setting down those stones. It is not about denying what happened. It is not about saying the hurt was okay. It is not about forgetting. Forgiveness is about freeing the heart from the prison of the past. It is about saying, "I will not let this pain control me any longer. I will not let bitterness define my life." The Buddha understood the deep suffering caused by clinging to anger. He taught that holding on to resentment is like picking up a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Anger poisons the one who carries it. Forgiveness is the antidote. But forgiveness is not easy. When someone has hurt us deeply, the idea of forgiving can feel impossible. The mind insists, if I forgive, it means they win. If I forgive, it means I accept what they did. But this is a misunderstanding. Forgiveness does not excuse harm. It does not erase accountability. It does not mean you must allow someone to hurt you again. Forgiveness is about your own freedom. It is about refusing to carry the poison any longer. Think of a prisoner who holds the key to their own cell, but refuses to use it. That is what it is like to cling to resentment. The prison door is open, but we stay inside, gripping the bars. Forgiveness is using the key. It is walking into the open air. This practice is not only for others, it is also for ourselves. Many of us carry guilt for past mistakes. We replay them again and again, punishing ourselves long after the event is over. But guilt, when it becomes endless self-punishment, does not heal. It only deepens suffering. Self-forgiveness is the recognition that you are more than your mistakes. It is the choice to learn, to grow, and to release yourself from the chains of the past. The path of forgiveness begins with compassion. To forgive others, we must first see their humanity. We must recognize that those who hurt us are themselves caught in ignorance, fear, or pain. This does not justify their actions, but it explains them. When we see the suffering beneath harmful behavior, our hearts begin to soften. We may still set boundaries, but we release the hatred that poisons us not to forgive ourselves. We must also see our own humanity. We must remember that we, too, are imperfect beings learning as we go. We must speak to ourselves as we would speak to a dear friend, with honesty, but also with kindness. Self-forgiveness does not mean ignoring mistakes. It means facing them fully, learning what they can teach us, and then letting them go. Practical forgiveness often begins small. It might be a single breath in which you release anger for a moment. It might be a silent wish for peace, even if you do not feel ready to let go fully. Forgiveness is rarely a single act. It is a process, a practice, a slow softening of the heart over time. The Buddha encouraged the practice of metta, or loving kindness, as a path toward forgiveness. In metta meditation, we send wishes of peace and happiness first to ourselves, then to loved ones, then to neutral people, then even to those who have harmed us. At first, this can feel impossible. But slowly, with repetition, the heart begins to open. Slowly, the grip of resentment loosens. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack on a long journey. Every step is painful under the weight. Then one day, you set it down. The relief is immediate, almost overwhelming. This is what forgiveness feels like. The journey is the same, but your heart is lighter. You are freer to walk with grace. In modern life, forgiveness is often misunderstood as weakness. We are taught to stand strong, to never forget, to get even. But true strength lies in letting go, not in clinging. It takes far more courage to release hatred than to hold it. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is the deepest form of power. And when we forgive, we heal not only ourselves, but also the world. Cycles of resentment and revenge have fueled wars, feuds, and family divisions for generations. Forgiveness breaks the cycle. It says, "This suffering ends with me. I will not pass it on." In this way, forgiveness becomes a gift to the future. Yet forgiveness does not erase pain. You may forgive someone and still feel sadness, still feel hurt. That is natural. Forgiveness is not about erasing emotions. It is about transforming your relationship to them. It is about releasing the desire for revenge, the endless replay of anger, the belief that your worth is tied to your wounds. Self-forgiveness, too, is not about pretending you never made mistakes. It is about facing them honestly, making amends where you can, and then allowing yourself to grow beyond them. It is about refusing to let the past define the rest of your life. This practice is not a one-time act. It is a way of living. Each day brings new opportunities to forgive small annoyances, harsh words, careless actions. Each act of forgiveness strengthens the heart, making it easier to forgive the deeper wounds when they arise. And as forgiveness deepens, love expands. Because when the heart is no longer chained by resentment, it has space for compassion. It has space for joy. It has space to connect more deeply with others. Forgiveness clears the ground where love can grow. This is why the Bodhisattva embraces forgiveness. They know that without it, compassion cannot flow freely. Without forgiveness, the heart remains blocked. With forgiveness, the heart becomes boundless, capable of embracing all beings without exception. And yet, there is another truth. Forgiveness not only frees us from the past, it also prepares us for the future. Because life will bring more pain, more disappointment, more wounds. If we cling each time, we will be crushed. But if we practice forgiveness as a way of being, we remain light, flexible, open. We learn to move through life without carrying every injury. We learn to keep walking with love. From here, the path naturally leads us into the teaching of compassion in action. Forgiveness opens the heart. Compassion directs it outward. Once the heart is free, the question becomes, how can I serve others? How can I bring this love into the world? When the heart is freed through forgiveness, something new begins to stir inside. A softness, a warmth, a quiet desire to ease the suffering of others. This is compassion. It is not pity, which looks down on others. It is not sympathy, which remains distant. Compassion is the deep recognition that your suffering and mine are not separate. It is the willingness to respond with love. But compassion is not only a feeling. It is action. It is how we move through the world when our hearts are open. Words of kindness, hands that help, choices that heal rather than harm. These are compassion in action. Forgiveness prepares the soil. Compassion is the fruit. Think of a river flowing through a dry land. Wherever it goes, life appears: trees, flowers, animals drinking at its banks. Compassion works the same way. Wherever it flows, healing appears. A lonely person feels seen. A burdened person feels lighter. A divided heart feels whole again. Sometimes we think compassion must be something grand, something heroic. But compassion often shows itself in the smallest acts. A smile to a stranger, a patient tone with a child, a listening ear for a friend in pain. These acts may seem small, but to the one who receives them, they can mean everything. In Buddhism, compassion is often paired with wisdom. Compassion without wisdom can become exhausting, like pouring water into a broken jar. Wisdom without compassion can become cold, like a sharp blade with no warmth. Together, they create balance. Wisdom sees clearly. Compassion responds with love. The Bodhisattva embodies this balance. They see suffering clearly, without denial. They also act, even when their action is small. They know they cannot solve every problem, but they do not let that stop them from helping where they can. A single act of compassion may not change the whole world, but it changes the world for someone. Modern life desperately needs compassion in action. We live in a culture that often rewards competition over care, speed over presence, profit over kindness. Stress rises, loneliness deepens, divisions grow sharper. Compassion cuts through these illusions. It reminds us of what truly matters: connection, healing, love. Consider a workplace where deadlines and pressure dominate. Everyone is tense, snapping at each other. Now imagine one person who chooses compassion. They pause before reacting. They listen instead of interrupting. They offer encouragement instead of criticism. Slowly, their presence begins to shift the atmosphere. Others feel calmer, more respected, more human. That one person has planted seeds of peace in a place of stress. This is compassion in action. Or imagine a community divided by anger and mistrust. Neighbors argue, families break apart, people stop speaking. Into this space steps someone with compassion. They listen to both sides. They create space for dialogue. They refuse to add fuel to the fire of hatred. Slowly, a bridge appears where there was once only division. Compassion has opened the way for healing. This is the power of compassion in action. It transforms environments, not just individuals. It ripples outward, often in ways unseen. You may never know how far your kindness travels, but it travels nonetheless. Compassion also requires courage. Because to act with compassion means to stay open in the face of pain. It means to enter places others avoid. It means to allow your heart to be moved. This can feel risky. The mind wants to stay safe, to remain numb. But the heart grows stronger when it opens, not weaker. Compassion builds resilience. And compassion is not always gentle. Sometimes it is fierce, like a parent protecting a child. Sometimes it is bold, like speaking out against injustice. True compassion does not mean avoiding conflict. It means acting with the intention to reduce suffering, even if the action is difficult. The Buddha himself modeled this. He spoke truth even when it challenged powerful people. He embraced the poor, the sick, the outcast, even when society rejected them. His compassion was not only soft, it was courageous. It was love in motion. For us, compassion in action may begin with small daily choices. Choosing patience in traffic instead of rage. Choosing to recycle, knowing the earth suffers. Choosing to donate, knowing others are hungry. Choosing to call a friend who feels alone. Each act plants seeds of healing. Over time, these small acts add up. They shape who we are. They shape the world we live in. Compassion becomes not just something we do, but who we are. A way of being. A way of moving through the world. And when compassion becomes our way of life, we find that our own suffering feels lighter. Because compassion dissolves the illusion of separation. It reminds us that we are part of a greater whole. Helping others helps ourselves. Loving others heals our own hearts. This is why compassion is the natural flowering of forgiveness. When we set down the stones of resentment, our hands are free to reach out. When we release the chains of guilt, our hearts are free to love. Forgiveness clears the path. Compassion walks it. And as we walk this path, a deeper question arises. If compassion is so essential, how do we sustain it? How do we keep our hearts open in a world that often feels overwhelming? The answer lies in the practice of loving kindness metta, the deliberate cultivation of unconditional goodwill for all beings. Compassion is powerful, but like any flame, it must be nourished or it fades. In a world filled with suffering, anger, and division, it is easy for the heart to grow weary. We try to care, but the pain feels endless. We try to love, but we meet rejection. Slowly, the heart begins to close again. This is why the Buddha gave us the practice of loving kindness metta, a training of the heart. To keep compassion alive, metta is more than an emotion. It is an intention, a deliberate choice to wish well for ourselves and all beings. It is the quiet prayer. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. These simple words are like water poured onto the roots of a tree. Slowly, they nourish the heart until love grows strong again. The practice begins with yourself. At first, this may feel strange. Many people are kind to others, but harsh to themselves. They say things to themselves they would never say to a friend. I'm worthless. I'm weak. I'm a failure. The Buddha knew that compassion for others cannot flourish without compassion for oneself. So metta begins here, with the courage to speak gently to your own heart. Imagine holding a child who is crying. You would not scold them. You would not call them names. You would hold them, whispering words of comfort. This is how metta invites you to treat yourself. To place your hand on your heart, breathe deeply and say, "May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I live with ease." At first, the words may feel mechanical, but with time, they begin to sink in. With time, the heart begins to soften out. From there, metta expands outward. You send loving kindness to a friend, then to a neutral person, someone you may not know well, but who shares this world with you. Then, with courage, you send it to someone difficult, someone who has hurt you. This does not mean approving of their actions. It means recognizing their shared humanity, their longing to be free from suffering. Finally, you expand metta to all beings everywhere, without exception. This practice reshapes the heart. Slowly, the walls of separation begin to crumble. You stop dividing the world into us and them. You stop measuring who deserves your kindness. You begin to see that all beings share the same fragile hope: to be safe, to be happy, to live in peace. Metta is not fantasy. It is not about pretending the world is perfect. It is about choosing love, even in the face of imperfection. It is about training the mind to respond with kindness instead of hatred, with patience instead of judgment. And the effects are real. Studies show that loving kindness meditation reduces stress, increases empathy, and strengthens resilience. But beyond science, you can feel it in your own body. Anger tightens the chest. Resentment burns like fire. Metta cools the heart. It opens space. It allows you to breathe in daily life. Metta can be practiced anywhere. Standing in line at the grocery store, you can silently wish, "May everyone here be peaceful." Driving in traffic, you can breathe and think, "May all beings arrive safely." Even when scrolling through the news, instead of drowning in despair, you can whisper, "May all beings find relief." These small acts keep compassion alive in a world that so often pulls us toward fear. Metta also protects the heart. Without it, compassion can turn into burnout. We see so much suffering that we become numb. But with metta, compassion remains rooted in love, not in obligation. It flows naturally, like a spring that never runs dry. The practice of loving kindness also transforms relationships. A harsh word from a coworker no longer triggers immediate anger. Instead, you pause, remembering that they too are suffering. A family member who frustrates you becomes less of an enemy and more of a fellow traveler. Even strangers become less invisible. You see their humanity in their eyes, and your heart responds. This practice can feel radical in a culture that often celebrates toughness, sarcasm, and division. But true strength is the courage to love in a world that tells you to harden. True strength is choosing kindness even when it is not returned. True strength is refusing to let hatred close your heart. The Buddha compared metta to the love of a mother for her child, boundless, unconditional, unshaken by circumstances. Imagine carrying that kind of love not just for one person, but for all beings. Imagine walking through the world with a heart so vast that nothing is excluded. This is the vision of metta. And yet, metta is not only for the gentle moments. It is also for the hardest times. When you face betrayal, you can turn to metta. When you face illness, you can turn to metta. When the world feels overwhelming, you can turn to metta. It is a practice you can carry with you, always, like a lantern in the dark. Over time, loving kindness becomes second nature. Instead of reacting with anger, you respond with patience. Instead of shrinking in fear, you expand in love. This does not mean you become passive. On the contrary, metta gives you the strength to act wisely. Because when the heart is open, your actions are guided not by fear, but by love. And so, Metta sustains the bodhisattva path. It keeps compassion alive in the face of endless suffering. It prevents burnout. It turns forgiveness into love and love into action. It is the steady flame that lights the way forward. But metta alone is not enough. It must be paired with mindfulness awareness that brings us back to this moment. Because love without awareness can become blind. Awareness without love can become cold. Together, mindfulness and metta form the wings of awakening. And this is where the journey leads next. Loving kindness opens the heart. Mindfulness steadies it. Together, they are like two wings of a bird. With only one, the bird cannot fly. With both, it soars freely across the sky. In the same way, compassion without mindfulness can lose direction, while mindfulness without compassion can become cold and detached. But together, they create balance, warmth, and clarity, love and wisdom. Mindfulness means awareness. It means being fully present with what is happening right now, your body, your breath, your feelings, your thoughts, the world around you. It is the simple practice of noticing. This is breathing in, this is breathing out. This is sadness, this is joy. This is sound, this is silence. Instead of being lost in stories of the past or the future, mindfulness brings you home to this moment. At first, mindfulness may seem too simple. Why pay attention to breathing? Why notice walking? Isn't life about bigger things? But mindfulness reveals that the bigger things are made of these small moments. Life is not in the past or future. Life is here. To miss this moment is to miss your life. And so mindfulness trains us to return again and again to the now, to taste food instead of rushing through it, to listen deeply instead of waiting for our turn to speak, to notice the warmth of sunlight, the sound of rain, the beating of our own heart. These simple acts awaken us to the richness of life. Mindfulness also transforms suffering. When pain arises, the untrained mind resists. It says, "This should not be here. I must escape." But resistance only deepens suffering. Mindfulness invites us to turn toward the pain with curiosity. What is this? Where do I feel it? How does it move? By observing instead of resisting, we create space. The pain may not vanish, but it no longer controls us. Think of sitting by a river, watching leaves float past. Some leaves are beautiful, some are ugly, some are heavy. But you do not jump in to grab them. You simply watch them flow. In the same way, mindfulness allows you to watch your thoughts and feelings without clinging to them. They arise, they pass. You remain steady, like the riverbank. This steady awareness also supports loving kindness. Without mindfulness, our love may become sentimental, blind to reality. But with mindfulness, love becomes wise. We see clearly what truly reduces suffering, rather than acting out of habit or illusion. For example, imagine a friend who is caught in addiction. Without mindfulness, love may turn into enabling giving them what they ask for, even if it deepens their harm. With mindfulness, love sees clearly. It recognizes that true compassion may mean setting boundaries, speaking hard truths, guiding them toward healing rather than short-term comfort. Mindfulness makes love skillful. Mindfulness also protects the heart. In a world filled with suffering, it is easy to feel overwhelmed. Mindfulness teaches us to stay present with just this moment, just this breath. Instead of drowning in the vast ocean of pain, we learn to swim with steady strokes. We learn to rest when we need to. We learn to carry compassion without burning out. The Buddha compared mindfulness to a lamp in the darkness. Without it, we stumble blindly, bumping into obstacles, hurting ourselves and others. With it, we see clearly, moving with grace. Loving kindness is the warmth of the lamp's glow. Mindfulness is the clarity of its light. Practicing mindfulness does not require a monastery. It can be woven into daily life. Washing dishes, you can feel the water on your hands, the movement of your body, the breath rising and falling. Walking, you can notice each step touching the earth. Listening, you can give full attention without drifting into distraction. Each moment becomes practice. Each moment becomes alive. In this way, mindfulness turns ordinary life into meditation. No longer is practice separate from daily tasks. Life itself becomes the path. Every breath, every step, every act becomes an opportunity to return to awareness and compassion. And as mindfulness deepens, something profound emerges. You begin to see the impermanent nature of all things. Thoughts arise and pass. Emotions come and go. Bodies grow and change. Nothing is fixed. Nothing is permanent. At first, this may feel unsettling. But with mindfulness, impermanence becomes a source of freedom. Because when you see that everything changes, you stop clinging. You stop demanding that life stay the same. You begin to flow with it. This flowing awareness brings peace. You no longer fear the end of joy, because you know it will come, and you will meet it with grace. You no longer despair in sorrow, because you know it too will pass. You live in the rhythm of change, anchored in awareness, guided by compassion. Together, loving kindness and mindfulness create a path of awakening that is both tender and strong. Loving kindness keeps the heart open. Mindfulness keeps the mind clear. Loving kindness connects you to others. Mindfulness connects you to the truth. With both wings, you soar. And as you soar, another teaching begins to reveal itself. Mindfulness and loving kindness are not just about personal peace. They are also about how we meet death, the greatest change of all. For death is the ultimate teacher of impermanence, the final call to presence. To face it with fear or denial is suffering. To face it with mindfulness and compassion is freedom. Death is the truth we all try to avoid. We plan our lives, chase our dreams, hold tightly to those we love, yet in the background, the shadow of death always waits. Most of us live as if it will not come. We bury it under busyness. We deny it with youthfulness. We pretend it is something far away, something that happens only to others. But no matter how much we avoid it, death is certain. The Buddha did not turn away from this truth. He faced it directly. He taught that remembering death is not morbid, it is liberating. Because when you see clearly that life is fragile, you stop wasting time. You stop clinging to trivial things. You begin to live fully, here and now. Imagine holding a delicate flower. You know it will fade. Its petals will fall. But does that make it less beautiful? Or does it make it more precious? In the same way, death makes life meaningful. Each breath is valuable because it is not guaranteed. Each moment is sacred because it will never return. Modern culture often hides death. The sick are placed in hospitals. The dying are kept out of sight. Funerals are rushed. We treat death as failure, as if it were a mistake. But death is not a mistake. It is part of the rhythm of life. To deny it is to deny reality. To face it is to awaken. The Buddha compared life to a bubble on a stream, fragile, temporary, gone in an instant. This is not meant to create despair. It is meant to free us. Because once you accept impermanence, you no longer fear it. You stop clinging to what cannot last. You begin to love more deeply because you know nothing is permanent. Think of sitting with someone you love. If you believed you would have them forever, you might take them for granted. But when you remember that time is limited, you look into their eyes more fully. You listen more deeply. You say, "I love you," while you can. Death teaches us to live with urgency, not in panic, but in appreciation. Facing death also softens the ego. So much of our suffering comes from trying to build a permanent self and identity, a reputation, a legacy. But death strips it all away. Titles, possessions, achievements, none can be carried. What remains? Only the love you gave, the kindness you shared, the compassion you cultivated. These are the true treasures that death cannot erase. Asterisk, the Buddha often encouraged monks to meditate in graveyards, to sit among the bones and ashes, to reflect on the body's impermanence. Why? Because when you see directly that the body is fragile, you stop clinging to it as me. You begin to identify less with flesh and more with awareness. You discover that what you truly are is not this temporary body, but the vast consciousness that knows it. This awareness changes how you meet death, not as an enemy, but as a natural part of the journey. You may still feel sadness. You may still grieve, but you no longer see death as a tragedy. You see it as a doorway, and what lies beyond that doorway. The Buddha spoke of the endless cycle of birth and death, the wheel of samsara, driven by craving and ignorance. But he also spoke of liberation, the freedom beyond birth and death. This freedom does not mean escaping into nothingness. It means awakening to the truth that your deepest nature was never born and never dies. Awareness itself is beyond time. This truth can sound abstract, but it can be felt even now. Sit quietly. Notice thoughts arising and passing. Notice sensations arising and passing. Notice the breath arising and passing. Everything changes. And yet, there is something that notices the change. That awareness is steady, silent, unchanging. This awareness is not born, and it will not die. To rest in it is to taste freedom. In this way, death becomes not something to fear, but something that points us back to what is eternal within us. The body will die. The personality will fade. But the awareness that you are spacious, luminous, compassionate remains untouched. This realization brings peace. Instead of living in denial of death, you live in intimacy with it. You let it guide your choices. You let it strip away illusions. You let it remind you, again and again, of what truly matters. Think of a person who has faced death closely through illness, accident, or loss. Often, they emerge changed. They no longer waste time on petty arguments. They no longer chase empty status. They live more simply, love more deeply, give more freely. Death has become their teacher. You do not need to wait until death is near to learn this lesson. You can begin now by reflecting daily on impermanence, by remembering that each morning you wake is a gift, by living as if each conversation, each meal, each sunset might be your last, because one day it will be. This practice does not make life heavier. It makes life lighter. You stop carrying grudges because you realize time is too short. You stop postponing joy because you realize tomorrow is not promised. You stop holding back love because you realize love is the only thing worth leaving behind. And as you open to death in this way, fear begins to dissolve. Not all at once, but slowly, gently. Fear loses its grip. You discover that what you once called the end is simply another transformation. You discover that in letting go, you are free. The Bodhisattva embraces death not with despair, but courage. They know that death is part of the shared human journey. They use it to deepen compassion. When they see others grieving, they can sit with them without turning away, because they too have faced the truth. They can remind others that love is not lost, that awareness is not destroyed, that life continues in countless forms. In this way, death becomes not an enemy, but a companion on the path. It walks beside you, whispering, "Do not waste your time. Live fully. Love deeply. Awaken now." And from here, the journey moves naturally toward its final step. If death is not the end, if awareness is unbroken, then what is the ultimate freedom? The Buddha called it nirvana, the extinguishing of craving, the end of suffering, the realization of boundless peace. To approach nirvana is to walk beyond fear, beyond attachment, into the vast freedom of awakening. Nirvana is a word that has been misunderstood, romanticized, and often reduced to a vague idea of bliss. Some imagine it as a paradise somewhere far away. Others see it as a dreamlike escape from reality. But the Buddha did not describe nirvana as an escape. He described it as the end of suffering. Not the end of life, not the end of experience, but the end of craving, clinging, and fear. Nirvana is freedom. Not to understand this freedom, we must first see the chains that bind us. Our suffering does not come simply from pain itself. Pain is part of life. Our suffering comes from craving. Craving for pleasure to last forever. Craving for pain to never appear. Craving for life to stay the same. We cling to what cannot be clung to. We resist what cannot be resisted. This is the root of our suffering. Nirvana is the extinguishing of this fire of craving. It is the coolness that comes when the fire finally goes out. Imagine standing in a burning room, the heat unbearable. Then suddenly, the flames are gone. The air is cool, clear, fresh. That is nirvana. Not a distant place, but a state of being where the fires of greed, hatred, and ignorance no longer consume you. This freedom is not only after death. It can be tasted here and now. Every moment you let go of clinging, you taste nirvana. Every moment you release resentment, you taste nirvana. Every moment you meet life without resistance, you taste nirvana. It may be brief, like a breeze on a hot day, but it points to a greater freedom that is possible. Consider a time when you forgave someone, truly forgave them. In that moment, the weight lifted. The heart opened. Peace filled you. That was a glimpse of nirvana. Or think of a moment when you were fully present, free from worry, free from craving, simply alive in the now. That too was a glimpse of nirvana. The Buddha did not promise that nirvana was easy to reach. The path requires patience, discipline, compassion, and wisdom. But he promised it was possible for anyone. Not just monks, not just saints, but anyone willing to walk the path of awareness and letting go. The challenge for many of us is that we fear letting go. We cling to our identities, our possessions, our relationships, even our suffering, because we believe they define us. If I let go, who will I be? The Buddha's answer is simple. You will be free. You will be what you have always been beneath the clinging awareness itself. Luminous and boundless. Nirvana is not annihilation. It is awakening. It is the realization that you are never the small self you thought you were. You are not limited to your body, your thoughts, your history. You are part of the vast, interconnected flow of life. You are the sky, not the storm. You are the ocean, not the wave. This realization transforms how we face death. For those who cling to self, death feels like the ultimate loss. But for those who glimpse nirvana, death is only the dissolving of form. The awareness that you are remains untouched. Fear fades, replaced by peace. The Buddha described nirvana as the deathless, not because the body lives forever, but because awareness is beyond birth and death. When you awaken to this, you see that death is not the end of you. You are never just this body, never just this life. You are part of something vast, timeless, and free. This truth is not meant to be grasped with the mind alone. It is meant to be lived. Each act of letting go, each step of compassion, each moment of mindfulness is a doorway into freedom. Slowly, the fire burns lower. Slowly, the coolness of nirvana begins to spread through your life. Imagine walking through the world no longer driven by fear, no longer chained by resentment, no longer consumed by craving. Imagine living with a heart at peace, open to all, unattached to all, free in all. This is nirvana. it does not mean you stop caring. In fact, it means you care more deeply. Because you are no longer bound by self-centered desire, your love flows without condition. You help not because you need recognition, but because compassion is your nature. You give not because you expect return, but because generosity is freedom. This is why the Bodhisattva, even after tasting nirvana, chooses to remain in the world. They know that freedom is not for themselves alone. They know that the deepest joy is helping others find peace. They embody nirvana not by leaving life but by living fully, with a heart free of clinging. For us, the path to nirvana begins where we are. Each time we release anger instead of feeding it, we step closer. Each time we choose love instead of hatred, we step closer. Each time we rest in awareness instead of distraction, we step closer. Nirvana is not a single leap into perfection. It is 1,000 small steps into freedom. And so, death, once our greatest fear, becomes our greatest teacher. It shows us what is impermanent so we can stop clinging. It shows us what truly matters so we can live fully. It points us toward nirvana, the freedom beyond fear, beyond clinging, beyond suffering. From here, the path begins to turn toward its final chapter. After walking through suffering, stillness, groundlessness, sangha, forgiveness, compassion, and death, the story is nearly complete. What remains is to bring all these teachings together, to see how they weave into a single fabric of awakening, and to end with hope, a vision of living in freedom here and now. Asterisk, we have walked a long path together. We have looked directly at suffering, at stress, at anxiety, at money and relationships, at the endless hunger of craving. We have faced groundlessness, loneliness, and the fear of death. We have discovered stillness, presence, forgiveness, compassion, and the boundless heart of loving kindness. We have glimpsed the freedom of nirvana. Now the question arises, how do we live all of this in daily life? How do we take these teachings out of books and temples and bring them into our homes, our workplaces, our conversations, our very breath? The answer is not complicated. It is not about memorizing doctrine or adopting rituals. It is about living awake. It is about walking through life with awareness, with compassion, with courage. It is about remembering, again and again, what truly matters. Awakened living does not mean a life without problems. It does not mean we will never feel anger, fear, or grief. To be human is to feel. Awakened living means we meet these emotions with awareness instead of being controlled by them. We feel anger, but do not drown in it. We feel fear, but do not let it close our hearts. We feel grief, but do not lose sight of love. Imagine walking through a storm. The wind blows, the rain falls, the sky darkens. You cannot stop the storm, but you can walk with steadiness, step by step, knowing the storm will pass. Awakened living is like this. It is not about controlling the weather of life. It is about walking with awareness through it all. One of the keys to awakened living is remembering impermanence. Everything changes: joy, sorrow, success, failure, life itself. When we forget this, we cling desperately, and suffering grows. When we remember this, we let go. We savor joy while it lasts. We endure sorrow, knowing it will pass. We live each moment fully because we know it will never return. Another key is compassion. Awakened living is not about isolating ourselves in peace while the world suffers. It is about bringing peace into the world. It is about meeting each person as a fellow traveler, each situation as an opportunity to respond with kindness. Compassion does not mean fixing everything. It means refusing to close the heart. It means choosing love in the small moments again and again until love becomes our way of being. Mindfulness is the ground of awakened living. Without it, we slip back into habit, into distraction, into forgetting. Mindfulness is the gentle bell that brings us back. This breath, this step, this conversation, this moment. It is the reminder that life is happening now, not yesterday, not tomorrow. Each moment of mindfulness is a moment of freedom. Forgiveness, too, is essential. Because no matter how much we practice, we will stumble. We will hurt others. Others will hurt us. Without forgiveness, the heart grows heavy, weighed down by resentment and guilt. With forgiveness, the heart remains light, free to love again. Awakened living is not perfect living, it is forgiving living. And finally, awakened living means seeing ourselves not as separate individuals, but as part of the vast web of interbeing. My well-being is tied to yours. Your happiness is tied to mine. The health of the earth is tied to the health of us all. When we see this clearly, selfishness dissolves. Greed fades. Love expands. We begin to live not for me, but for we. This vision of awakened living is not a dream for saints. It is available here and now, in ordinary lives. A mother comforting her child, a teacher listening patiently, a worker pausing to breathe before speaking harshly. These are moments of awakening. Small, simple, but powerful. The path is not about perfection. It is about practice. Each day we forget, and each day we return. Each day we stumble, and each day we rise. Awakening is not a single event. It is a way of walking, step by step, through the changing seasons of life. And what happens when we live this way? Life becomes lighter. Fear softens. Love deepens. Even in suffering, there is peace. Even in uncertainty, there is courage. Even in death, there is freedom. This is the gift of the Dharma. This is the promise of awakened living. But the story is not yet complete, because to live awake is not only to walk with peace yourself. It is to share that peace with others. It is to become a light in a world often lost in darkness. It is to embody hope, to embody love, to embody freedom, not as words, but as presence. And so the final step of our journey is this: to bring the path to a close by opening into hope, by planting seeds for the future, by reminding ourselves and others that awakening is possible. Here and now. As we arrive at the end of this journey together, we can look back and see how far we have walked. We began in the rawness of suffering, the stress of modern life, the weight of money and relationships, the ache of loneliness and anxiety. We walked through the storms of groundlessness, the struggles of forgiveness, the challenge of compassion. We faced death itself. And step by step, we discovered freedom through presence, through kindness, through awareness, through love. The path we have explored is not meant to remain as words. It is meant to be lived. It is meant to guide the way you breathe, the way you speak, the way you love, the way you meet each moment of your life. These teachings are not locked away in temples or hidden in books. They live in you, here and now. And so, as we close, the invitation is simple. Live awake. Do not postpone your life, waiting for tomorrow. Do not waste it in resentment or fear. Do not drown in distractions that steal your precious time. Breathe, love, forgive, be kind. This is the heart of the path. You may wonder, can I really live this way? Can I really bring these teachings into my ordinary life? The answer is yes. Not perfectly, not without stumbling, but yes. Every act of awareness, however small, is awakening. Every act of kindness, however quiet, is awakening. Every moment you choose love instead of fear, you are living awake. And do not underestimate the power of these small acts. A kind word spoken today may ripple through the lives of people you will never meet. A breath of mindfulness may prevent words of anger that could wound deeply. A single act of forgiveness may heal generations of bitterness. You do not need to save the whole world. You only need to bring light to this moment. The rest will unfold. Living awake also means living with hope. Not blind hope that denies suffering, but grounded hope that sees suffering clearly and chooses love anyway. Hope that refuses to surrender to despair. Hope that believes in the possibility of healing, even in a broken world. Hope that begins with one heart and spreads like fire in dry grass. The Buddha never promised that life would be free of pain. He promised that freedom was possible in the midst of pain. He promised that the heart could be free even in the storms of life. And countless people, across centuries and cultures, have discovered this freedom for themselves. You can too. So let this be your reminder. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not alone. You carry within you the seeds of awakening, the capacity for compassion, the light of awareness. No matter what has happened in your past, no matter what fears lie in your future, freedom is available here and now, in this breath, in this step, in this moment. And when you forget, as we all do, return gently. Do not scold yourself. Do not despair. Simply return. Each return is awakening. Each return is victory. If you live this way, your life itself becomes a gift to others. Not through grand speeches or heroic acts, but through presence. Through the way you listen, the way you smile, the way you treat each being with dignity. You become a mirror, reminding others of their own goodness, their own strength, their own wholeness. This is the true power of awakened living. It does not only transform your own heart, it transforms the world around you. Slowly, steadily, like dawn spreading across the sky, your presence brings light. And so we end with this call. Live awake. Breathe with awareness. Walk with compassion. Love without fear. Forgive without delay. Embrace impermanence and let it teach you what matters. Face death and let it remind you to live. Taste the freedom of nirvana, here and now, in each moment of letting go. This is the invitation. This is the promise. This is the path. May you be safe. May you be peaceful. May you live with ease. May your life shine with the light of awareness, so that others may find their way. And may we all, together, walk this path of awakening step by step, breath by breath, until suffering is transformed into freedom and love flows without end.